Alright, here's 11.1, day 2. Continuing our journey through chi-squared. We're moving on, and section 2 will be in 2 days. Really 2 tests, but the way they're kind of done, it's sort of one. One is called the test for homogeneity, and the other is called the test for independence. Okay, day 1 we'll just look at the test for homogeneity. Okay, it's like doing the same thing as goodness of fit. It's all about observed and expected counts. But notice here, we don't have just like one category of like a distribution that we're looking for. Here we have 3, okay, because it's measuring responses to medication for depression. St. John's wort, Zoloft, and a placebo. Okay, so really 2 of them, and then basically a control group. We were used to like seeing one column, and now we have 3. Okay, that's where we change gears a little bit, and really the biggest difference is how we get our expected counts. Okay, now I put the stacked bar graph to just kind of visualize the difference that the responses look somewhat similar. The no response looks to be a little bit higher for St. John's wort than the other 2. Zoloft seems to have the biggest partial, and then interesting, the placebo looks to have the largest proportion of a full response, which is kind of interesting. So down here, I'll take you through how we get these expected counts. Okay, because notice it's like a 2-way table now, as opposed to a list to store our data, because we have these 3 different columns. Okay, so I'll take you through a couple of these as to how they're done. Here were the totals. These are just being copied down from above. 113, we had 109 patients that took Zoloft, 116 that took the placebo. The study involved 338 patients total. 91 reported a full response, 55 a partial, 192 none. Okay, so for right up here, it's the product of the column and the row. So I'm right here, divided by the total. And it would be 30.42. Okay, move over to Zoloft, and I'm still in the row with a full response. Okay, the Zoloft here, I'm only going to show you the work for 3 of them, and then I'll just fill in the rest. That would be 109 times 91 over 338, and that would get you an expected count of 29.35. 116 times 91 over 338. Okay, already starts to raise the question, on each 4-step, are we going through to get all the expected counts ourselves? No, that will have to wait for the calculator tutorial, but typically that's actually where this is a little bit different from goodness of fit, is the calculator will also give you the expected counts, whereas goodness of fit we had to find them and enter them. Okay, so the sum of the row times the sum of the column divided by the total number of people in the table. Here are the others. That one was 18.88. This one was 64.2. 61.92. 65. These last 2 I have to double check. I can't quite read what my notes say. I made a mistake on it and then scribbled it in the margin. And for these last two. So for I mean, it's a good one to talk through. For Zoloft and partial, it would be 109 times 55 divided by 338. And that, let's see here, 116 times 18.8, 109 times 55. Okay, sorry about this. 17.74, and then 113 times 55 over 338, which would be 18.39. Yeah, when I was looking at my notes, that 18 looked like a 98, and I was looking at the rest of the table, and I was like, that expected count shouldn't be anything close to 98. So that's how they're done. We commonly don't look at them, right, other than just to verify that they're at least 5. But it's one of those things where in a 4-step problem, yeah, we're not really going to worry about it, but you should know how to find them. Okay, that's the bottom line. Is any other FRQ or a multiple choice question could get into how one particular expected count is calculated, and you should know how to do that. All right, so here is what the test would look like. There's HO and HA. HO says in the responses that there's no difference. HA says that there is. Okay, just like goodness of fit, it doesn't speculate at all as to how they're different or anything like that, just that they are. Okay? For the plan, this would be a chi-squared test for homogeneity at alpha 0.05. Treatments were randomly assigned. That was described in the problem. There, of course, those expected counts. Again, hold off on the... we found all those, but I'll show you on the calculator how we'd get those. And now for the do, once you have observed and expected counts, you calculate a chi-squared value. The same. I'll do the first two. This is one where you definitely want to just do the first two, though it seems like most of you are into that all the time, which is okay. And we'll do one more. I'll go down to stay with St. John's, but down to partial. Plus ... I'll show you the calculator feature for that. Degrees of freedom are a little bit different here because you might, when you get here, the calculator will tell you, but we obviously haven't seen that yet. But before it was just categories minus 1, but now you have 2 dimensions. And it's actually rows minus 1 times columns minus 1, which is 4. That part's a little bit different as to how the degrees of freedom are calculated. Our p-value is greater than 0.05. See if I can fit this in here. We fail to reject HO. We do not have convincing evidence that there's a difference in the distribution of responses in patients with moderately severe cases of depression when taking blah, 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 those particular drugs, okay, or a placebo, okay? A little interpretation for the p-value down at the bottom. that assuming HO is true, right, that all the treatments are as equally as effective, there's the probability about 0.07, right, 0.069. That's the probability that we would observe a difference in the distribution responses, like the one we got. Almost a 7% chance, which just isn't all that rare, which is why we failed to reject. All right, here's another one. Same test, going to be chi-squared test for homogeneity. This one will go quicker because I'm not going to put you through any of the expected counts. Right? They'll show up in the large numbers condition, but, But I'm not going to find any of them. It compares the distribution of responses to favorite or preferred superpower between kids in the U.S. and kids in the U.K. And there they are. That's SRS of 200 kids from the U.K., 215 from the U.S. That's what they chose. Are we convinced that U.S. and U.K. students ages 9 to 17, that the distribution of preferred superpower is different? That's what we're looking at. Now here's the bulk of the test. There's no difference in the distribution of superpower preferences for U.S. and U.K. kids. HA says that there is. We haven't talked about this much, but you did see it come up a little bit with the p-value. The chi-squared value is calculated assuming HO is true, right? And we haven't really touched on this enough, as I probably should. The expected counts kind of show here's what should be going on if HO is true. These are the type of numbers that we would get. Okay? For random, 2 SRSs of n equals 200 UK students. And n equals 215 US students. There's all your expected counts. Moving on to the do. So that contribution was from, I think, UK flying. And this next one is UK freezing time. So I just did the first column. And the first two in that column. And this one has, what, 10 contributions? And you can see why we shut it down after. After 2 of them. Alright, there's your chi-squared value, which is pretty small. Right, and again, what that small value means is my observed and expected counts were kind of similar. We get a huge p-value. There was 5 rows, 2 columns, 4 degrees of freedom. P-value is way over 0.05. We failed to reject HO. We're not convinced that these 2 distributions are different. Okay, and of course we just say that in context. There you go. I do have one more. All right. Comparing 2 pain relievers for kids recovering from arm and leg fractures. So they're just talking about the side effects. So this is the proportion on each of those 2 medications where we're not necessarily measuring the effectiveness of the pain reliever, but it's the side effects. You know, did it make you dizzy? Did it give you a headache? Did it give you a sore throat, or something like that? This I wanted to show you because in this whole degrees of freedom thing, this is going to have one. This is the smallest table that you could have for a test for homogeneity. It's got the two-way table, but each of the variables only have two outcomes, right? For the adverse effects, you could have them or not. And then for the pain relievers, you could have ibuprofen or acetaminophen plus codeine. Those are the two options. So you'll see when we get to degrees of freedom, we'll have one, which means this is the smallest possible table we could use for this type of test. Whoops, I gotta switch over to here. Most of it's already filled in. No difference in the proportion like these that suffer adverse effects. HA says that there is a difference between the two. Treatments were randomly assigned. Got our expected counts. This contribution, I always typically start just in the top left, and then I go down. Those are the two that I consider the first two. You could go across and do, for example, on this one, I'm doing the 2 for ibuprofen. You could have done the 2 for adverse effects, as far as what you've probably noticed on all of them, I just stick with that first column. I just like doing it consistently. P-value of 0.00084. And here's what I was talking about with the degrees of freedom. 2 rows, 2 columns. So that's really what that 1 degree of freedom means. This is you can almost think of the degrees of freedom like the number of options that we have for what place an individual would go, like where they would fit in the table. This offers the fewest options possible. 2 variables, which is required for a test for homogeneity, because if it only had 1, it would be a goodness of fit. 2 variables, each that only had 2 classifications, and that'd be it. Here the p-value is below 0.05, so we'd reject HO, and we're convinced that there is a difference in the proportion of patients like these suffering adverse effects when taking ibuprofen versus the acetaminophen plus codeine. Now, follow-up analysis here would be really interesting because this definitely, with the few options, begs the question, which one had a higher rate of side effects? That's where you could go to your follow-up analysis and see which was it, right? Because all the chi-squared test gets us to is that we're convinced that there's a difference. We got to do more if we wanted to see what that difference is.